Hello, Rube here, and welcome to Minecraft 1.17. Today I'm going to be giving you a tour of Shulkercraft's 2 million item capacity storage system with automatic sorting system. My friend and I built this in our realm, and we made a few additions to the original design, and I actually posted a comment on the original video, which received a ton of likes, and a lot of people asked questions about some of the things we added. We put in an index system, and we actually built a whole second floor to it directly below the first. And so I thought I would make this video to showcase some of those features and also talk about a few details of how the thing actually works that weren't really covered in the original tutorial. It is a great build, highly recommend it. I will put the link to Shulkercraft's video in the description, so if you haven't built this yet, I would highly recommend you pause this, go and check that out, and then what I'm about to show you will make a whole lot more sense. Apart from the length of the entranceway and a few material swaps just for aesthetic reasons, we pretty much built this exactly according to the original tutorial. The dimensions are the same, the styling is the same. We swapped I believe the original tutorial uses spruce logs here, but because of the texture pack we're using, we found that stripped dark oak actually looks better with the spruce than spruce logs do. So we made that change, and we also chose to put lanterns instead of torches along here and glowstones on the floor. The texture pack, by the way, is LBPR, Photorealism Reload by One Lots. I will also put the link to that in the description as well if you're interested. So let's get right into it. This here is our indexing system. So we use a written book on a lectern. We did not sign the book so that if we do make any changes later, we will still be able to edit it. And this is what it looks like inside. So when you open it up to page 1, you'll get an index of all the blocks based on the starting letter. And these tell you which page you can find all the blocks that fall under that. Next, you get the location reference, which assigns a code to the different floors of the building, the different wings, the sides, the levels, the base. So for the floor, the entry level floor is X, and the floor below it, which we'll go down to in a moment, is Y. The wing is directional, depending which way your wings end up facing. Your letters might be different, but for us, our wings face south, west, and north. So those are the letters we're using. Side refers to whether as you walk into one of the wings, you want to be looking at the chest on the left side or the chest on the right side. Then level is whether you want the top row of chests or the bottom row of chests. And then the bay, finally, is which group of 5 chests you're looking at from front to back. So when you put those all together, you get a code like this, which tells you exactly where you would go to find that particular item. So let's try this out. If I want to find a blaze rod, I'm going to look at this code here and see that it is on the first floor, because it's code X. I need to go to the west wing, the left side, bottom row of chests, and bay 3. So let's try that out and see how it works. We are on the ground floor. The west wing is the one directly in front of us. We then want the left-hand side. I'm going to go along to bay 3, and lo and behold, the blaze rolls are right on the bottom. When you're doing your indexing and planning out what to put where, we did this using an Excel spreadsheet just to plan it out and get a kind of a visual map of what to go where, and that made it a whole lot easier to actually set it up in game and also to generate this code. You also have to make some decisions about your naming convention, because there's a lot of block variants. And you need to decide what letter those are going to go under. So, for example, would you keep all chiseled things together, or are you going to group them as stone bricks and then put the variant separately so that it all comes under S? We decided that we were probably going to think of stone bricks, not specifically chiseled bricks, or chiseled anything for that matter, and so we grouped them by the name of, I guess, the master block as opposed to the variants. So you can see that we have the stone bricks and then the chiseled mossy slab stairs wall variants all underneath. Same with things like terracotta. And technically that goes against the naming convention for the actual textures, because you'll notice if you've ever been into resource packs, you'll notice that the textures are actually labeled as black terracotta, blue terracotta, etc. But we again decided that it would make more sense to have all the terracotta under T, and just have the variants listed underneath depending on what color they are. So for us, that made it a bit easier to organize. You might choose to do something different. There have been some comments saying that this book doesn't work because there's a 50-page limit. I am on Java edition. In Java edition, books have a maximum length of 100 pages. So as you can see, I've got 53 here. I will go to page 53 to prove that it exists. It works perfectly fine. If you're on Bedrock, then I'd suggest you split your alphabet in two and have two books next to each other and do one that goes from A to L, for example, and then M to Z or something. So you can still do it. You'll just need to split it into two different books. Just as an aside, if you are planning on doing it this way, where you have it labeled according to the master block and then its variants, the letter C will have by far the most entries and take up the most pages. That's because you have candles and all 17 color variants, you have concrete and all of its color variants, and you also have copper and all of its different states, if you choose to list them all out separately. Looking back, we probably didn't really need to do that, as I doubt we'll ever have enough of each of those variants to require separate storage, but we chose to do it for completeness, so it's there if we ever want it. And then the crimson wood comes under here as well. So yeah, it takes up what's that? It takes up 9 pages just for the letter C. If you decide you want to build a second layer like we did, I would recommend that you build down rather than up for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because if you go down, you're less likely to run out of mountain size and break out into the open air, but also because if you go down, it's really easy to connect your overflow chest from the first layer to become the intake of the layer below just via a hopper pipe, and that way you only need to have one intake chest at the beginning here to feed the entire system. On the topic of the intake chest, this part isn't really covered in the original tutorial video, but it's very simple. Essentially, you just need a chest here, or you can have multiple chests if you want, and then a bunch of hoppers directly underneath the chest, and then feeding towards where your sorting system mechanism actually is out the back here. Also, not in the tutorial is having a door so you can actually get out here and access this bit. I would recommend you do that just in case anything ever breaks or you need to change one of the filters, that kind of thing, so that you can get out here and do routine maintenance. Also, scaffolding is not actually listed in required materials, but I would recommend that you bring a bunch of scaffolding for this build and just leave it out here all set up. So that if you need to come out here, it's all connected via scaffolding. You can climb around because it gets pretty cramped out here once it's done. You do need to have this area fully lit up. Also not really mentioned in the tutorial, but there are spawnable areas out here and mobs will spawn if you don't have sufficient lighting. So if we go behind our water elevator system where the items go into the hopper chain to start being sorted, and look at the actual redstone mechanism behind it. Again, this isn't really talked about too much in the tutorial, but essentially it's just powered by an observer clock. And there's this piston here which will push this observer across to start the whole system. Now I actually use 2 dispensers here, so I have one that's through that way pointing into the water pipe, and then I actually have the same system powering a second dispenser because we found that the items were going up the water pipe actually very slowly, and if you've done a big mining expedition and you've completely filled the intake chest, it actually takes quite a long time for it to empty out. So we just sped it up a bit by adding a second dispenser. And it's kind of implied just based on the materials in the original build guide that you should have an on-off mechanism, but again, it's not shown. But so that we don't have the endless clicking sound that dispensers make when they're empty and they continue to be powered, we ran a line of redstone through here back into the entranceway so that we can actually have a lever to act as an on-off switch. So if I hit that lever, it starts the mechanism. There's items in there. The 2 dispensers will now be firing it into that water column, and it will go up there to the first of the hoppers and then start cycling around. And when we've had enough of the noise, we can turn it off, and all is peaceful again. A quick note about your item filters going into the comparators here. You need to have at least 41 of the item that you want to sort if it stacks to 64, and at least 11 if it's an item that stacks to 16. Otherwise, it will just go right through the hopper into the chest and you'll have lost your ability to filter. So if you're finding that it's not working properly, just keep that in mind and make sure that you've got the appropriate quantity in each of your hoppers that feed the comparators. Also make sure that you are putting it in this hopper right here, not the one underneath, and not the one on top, because those won't work. When it comes to building your second layer, you can get down there any way you like, really. You could build a staircase out of your hallway, you could have ladders. We chose to do the good old bubble elevators, one going up, one going down, because it's one of the most space efficient ways and also the quickest way to travel. So just hop down the down one. We've got glass all the way on the side here because we felt that looked nicer, looked a bit more like a real elevator. And then the open fence gates here are a good way to keep your water under control while still allowing you to enter and exit the column from all directions. Our second floor is the exact same design as the top, repeated. I believe we dug 20 blocks down from the first one. The build at its highest point is 11, so technically you don't need to dig quite that far, but we wanted to make sure there was plenty of buffer between the two and also to reduce the chances of us breaking through the sides of the mountain into the open air. You do want to make sure that it lines up exactly with the one above, simply because it will make connecting your intake pipe from the overflow chest that much easier. It does need to come down in a specific spot so that it can feed into the flow. This here is the intake pipe where it connects to the chest above. So where we had the water column on the upper level, instead here, once the items have gone through all of the top layer, they haven't found a matching filter, they then end up in this hopper chain. They go down and then they feed into this line of hoppers here and continue their journey into the second layer. Here's the original overflow chest from the top layer. So in order to connect that to the bottom, I simply dug the 15-20 blocks down from underneath this chest, filled it all with downwards pointing hoppers, and then continued with the design on the bottom layer as normal. So something else you might be wondering is if you don't need all 300, or in my case all 600 different item types right now, can you use less of them and save some for later? The answer is yes, but you have to fill the chests in a specific order and make sure that all your empty ones are at the end of the chain. You can't leave any gaps, as this will cause all items to simply funnel in there and not go through the rest of the system. So in order to do that properly, you need to understand how the items flow from one area to the next. So to illustrate that, I'm going to go back up to the top again. And let's just take a quick look out of here. So when you've put your items in, they flow through here, they go up here, and they start at this, oops. They start right here. So the water takes them to this hopper here on the top layer, and you can see that all these hoppers are pointing this way. So it's going to flow all the way around here, across the end, back again, and then around the corner into the next wing. And it will keep going until it finds a matching item below, and then it will funnel through into the appropriate chest. So what that means is that in terms of the order the chests are filled, this chest here with the birch saplings is actually the first chest in the system, and this one here is the last chest, the one directly below it, because items are going to travel all the way along the top row on the left, across the end, back this way, still on the top row. They're going to go around the corner, go all the way down this side, across the end, all the way back here. Again, round the corner, all the way down the left side, across the end, all the way back on the right side. And then once they get to here, there's actually the hopper pipe down, and then they start going along the bottom row. So then they'll go all the way along the right side, across the end on the bottom, across the left side of the bottom, and then wind their way around following that exact same pattern. Right side, across the end, left side, all the way back to the beginning, which is how this one becomes the last chest here. of this floor, that is. Obviously, if they get past this chest and they still haven't found a home, then they're going to go down the overflow pipe into the second layer. And then the whole process starts again when you get down here. Again, the top chest in the... Oh, hello, Enderman. The top chest in the first bay on the left, this one here, is chest number 1. And then this chest directly below it, which is empty for me currently, is the very final chest in the system. So if you are going to make a gap, plan out all your items so that you fill them in order. So fill the top row of your left wing first, then right, left, right, and so on. If you need to spill onto the bottom row, then that's going to happen in your right wing in the bay 1 across here. And then when you run out of items, you can then safely stop and cut off your hopper pipe at this point for expansion later. And then this will become your overflow chest. I don't have anything in there at the moment, but instead of having a separate overflow chest at the end of the system like we did before, this one, because it has no filter set, will now become the chest where anything that doesn't already have a home after going through this entire system ends up. So if you wanted to add to this, you could then in the future extend your hopper pipe out the back a bit further and start filling across here and then across here and so on. Like I said, you cannot leave gaps, so you couldn't leave these blank and then decide to start filling here, because this will continue to act as an overflow chest. So you'll find that items never actually reach the sorting hoppers over here because they're just getting stuck in this chest. Something else that might not have been immediately obvious to you from the original tutorial is that each item you put in here actually has 2 chests worth of storage and 1 hopper. Items will go first in this bottom chest here, but then they actually fill the chest directly behind the item frame as well. So you have twice as much storage that way. If you are in the situation where you find that the bottom chest is full, but there doesn't seem to be anything going into the top chest yet, the reason for that is because it actually has to fill the hopper out the back of the lower chest before it will start overflowing into the second chest. So there will always be 5 stacks of the item in that hopper out the back that you can't really reach very well. Actually, I guess you can reach if you very carefully click through there. You can see that it's got the 5 stacks in there. And that has to fill out before it will go into the next one. So if you're in that situation, don't panic. It's just going to take a little bit of extra time and stuff a bit more in, and it will start to go through into that upper chest as well. As you can see, we are completely full on cobblestone, so it's going to end up in overflow now if we shove any more in there. Which brings me to another point, actually. If you want to store a lot of something, yes, you can have duplicate chests for the same item. It works perfectly fine. You don't have to have them next to each other. You can have them wherever you want. So in this case, we have dirt on top row up here, and we also have dirt directly below it. This one is currently empty because I've been using a ton of dirt for a project. But if you recall from earlier, these might be one above the other, but in terms of how the items flow, they're actually in very different parts of the system because the top row is traveled in its entirety before items start coming along the bottom. But it works fine. Once this is completely full, which it's not, items will start bypassing this one, carry on through the rest, and then they will find their home in this chest on the bottom row. So that's it for this video. Again, link in the description to Shulkercraft's original tutorial for this awesome storage room. I absolutely love the build. It was great fun to do, and honestly with the 2 of us didn't really take that long even in survival mode. As long as you're building it later in the game, you have some of the basic farms, like you have a wood farm and you have an iron farm, because those really are the 2 big resources you need, is a ton of wood to make the chests, and then you actually need twice or 3 times as many chests because you have to use chests in the crafting of the hoppers as well. But really, if you've got those 2 things on tap, a good farm set up for each, it's not that bad to build. We built 2 of them after all, so yeah, it's we weren't put off by the experience of doing it the first time. It was actually very, very straightforward. And if you have any further questions about it, please do let me know, and I will do my best to answer them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!